Hi, welcome to Book Breaks. My name's Roger. Today I'll be reading a little bit of Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made by Stefan Pastis. This is a really fun book, and it's geared toward grades 3 to 8, but I do think older readers may enjoy it as well. So, let's get started with the prologue, titled, A Prologue That Story-Wise is Out of Order. It's harder to drive a polar bear into somebody's living room than you'd think. You need a living room window that's big enough to fit a car. You need a car that's big enough to fit a polar bear. And you need a polar bear that's big enough to not point out your errors, like the fact that you've driven into the wrong house, which, when it comes to cars and living rooms, is bad. I should back up. The story, not the car. Chapter 1. Blah, 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 blah. All right, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. My name is Failure, Timmy Failure. I look like this. My family name was once Failure, spelled F-A-Y-L-E-U-R-E, but somebody changed it. Now it is spelled as you see, F-A-I-L-U-R-E. I'd ask that you get your failure jokes out of the way now, because I am anything but a failure. I am the founder, president, and CEO of the detective agency I have named for myself, Failure Inc. Failure Inc. is the best detective agency in town, probably the state, perhaps the nation. The book you are holding is a historical record of my life as a detective. It has been rigorously fact-checked. All the drawings in here are by me. I tried to get my business partner to do the illustrations, but they were not very good. For example, here is his depiction of me. I have decided to publish this history because my expertise is invaluable to anyone who ever wanted to be a detective. Just read the reviews. Invaluable to anyone who ever wanted to be a detective, by Anonymous. But success did not come overnight for me. I had to overcome obstacles like these. Number 1, my mother. Number 2, my school. Number 3, my idiot best friend. Number 4, my polar bear. And yes, I'm sure you have the same question everyone else does when I list these obstacles. Why am I best friends with an idiot? I'll get to that later. Oh, and I suppose I should say a word about the 1,500-pound polar bear. His name is Total. Total's Arctic home is melting, so we wandered for food and found my cat dish. He is now 3,101 miles from his former home. Yes, that's a long way to roam for a cat dish, but we buy good cat food. Sadly, my cat is now in kitty heaven, or perhaps the kitty badlands. He never was a friendly cat. But I still have the polar bear. Initially, Total displayed a fair degree of diligence and reliability, and thus I agreed to make him a partner in my agency. As it turned out, the diligence and reliability were a ruse, something polar bears do. And I don't want to talk about it. I also don't want to discuss the change I agreed to make to the name of the agency, which now reads like this in our Yellow Pages ad. Total Failure Inc. Parentheses, we won't fail despite what the name says. And now I have to go because the Timmy line is ringing. Ring! Chapter 2. The Candy Man can't because he's missing all of his chocolate. The call is from Gunnar, classmate, neighbor, and now just another guy missing his Halloween candy. I get a lot of candy cases. They're not headline grabbing, but they pay cash. So I wake up my partner and hop on the Failure Mobile. There's the Failure Mobile. I should say a word about the Failure Mobile. It's not actually called a Failure Mobile. It's called a Segway. And it belongs to my mother. She won it in a raffle, and she has set forth some restrictions on when and how I can use it. Never, ever, ever, she says. I thought that was vague, so I use it. So far, she hasn't objected, mostly because she doesn't know. That touches upon one of the founding principles of Total Failure Inc., which I've memorialized in ink on the sole of my left shoe. Keep Mom in dark. The only complaint I have about the Failure Mobile is its speed. If I ride it somewhere while Total walks, Total gets there first. That wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that in between, Total naps. So it isn't any surprise to me that when I get to Gunner's house, Total is already there, doing something that he frequently does when he beats me to a house. Before I tell you what that is, let me just say this. First impressions are critical in the detective world. A client has to know at first glance that their detective is A, professional, B, classy, and C, discreet. All of this is undermined when the client's first impression of their detective is this: chomp, chomp, chomp. I've lectured Total so many times on eating garbage from clients' trash cans that I now believe he is purposely sabotaging the agency. Fortunately for me, by the time I knock on Gunner's door, Total has finished eating everything edible from the trash cans and is able to stand next to me on the porch. Gunner answers the door and escorts us to the scene of the crime. He points to an empty table by his bed. "My plastic pumpkin filled with candy was right there," he says while pointing to the tabletop. "Now it's gone." I look at the tabletop. I can tell from the empty space that it is gone. Nothing there. Gunner starts listing the candy he had in the pumpkin. 2 Mars bars, a Twix, 7 Three Musketeers, 5 Kit Kats, 11 Almond Joys, 5 Snickers, an Abba Zaba, and 8 Hershey's Kisses. Gunner looks up at me. "You getting all this down?" Of course I'm getting it down. Candy gone. Let's start with the basics, I tell the client, like payment. I take cash, checks, and credit cards. Now, I don't actually take credit cards, but it sounds professional, so I say it anyway. "How much will it cost?" asks the client. $4 a day, I say, plus expenses. "Expenses?" asks Gunner. "Chicken nuggets for the big man," I say, pointing it up at Total. Total roars, which looks intimidating until he falls backwards and crashes on Gunner's desk. That I know will be coming out of his chicken nuggets. I tell Gunner that I anticipate a 6-week investigation with lots of witnesses, maybe some air travel. "I'll show myself out," I tell him. As I walk down the hall, I pass his brother Gabe's room. Gabe is sitting on his bed, surrounded by candy wrappers. There is chocolate smeared all over his face, and an empty plastic pumpkin on the floor. Always on the lookout for clues, I make an important note in my detective log. Gabe, not tidy. That's the prologue and chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. Check it out. It is a great read. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at youthservices@olpl.org. Thanks again so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.